Hey everyone, this is Dan Santana, and thank you for joining us on this episode of the To the Throne podcast. We are so glad you're here today with us. Before we jump into it, I want to remind you to like and subscribe on whatever platform you may be listening to. And if you do listen to Apple Podcasts, please rate and review. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you think about it. We're excited to hear back and get some feedback. The feedback we have so far is great. So rate and review on Apple Podcasts. This is a little bit of a different podcast that we're going to have today. Normally, Dakota would be here with me. We have some back and forth. We talk about a topic. But today, we're going to have an interview. It's going to be great. We took a trip to Lynchburg, Virginia, and we finally met somebody that we've been wanting to meet for a while. We took the time out and said, you know what, let's meet this person. We've seen him on Instagram. We see his influence, seen his skill that he does, the things he does for the kingdom. And we just really wanted to meet with him and sit down and talk and find out more about him. His name is Andrew Lennon. He goes by Saint Lennon on Instagram. You may or may not follow him. If you don't, follow him. If you don't know who he is, you're about to find out. We had a great time with him and his wife in his studio, hearing about their vision for things, for the church that they have. And we're so excited to jump into this interview right here with Dakota and Saint Lennon. Check it out.
Welcome, dude.
What's
Good
up?
to have you on the episode 8 of the To the Throne podcast.
I'm honored.
Dude, thanks for being here. I mean, we're in your great, gorgeous studio space. Yeah. It's really pretty. So
thank you.
Maybe we'll
much.
Throw some pictures or something up.
Do it.
But
that's so cool.
Yeah, man. Thanks for being on. You're our first official guest.
That's huge.
So first of many, but yeah,
okay.
we're really happy to have you. So
wow.
Thanks again. But jumping right into it.
Yeah.
You've been someone I've looked up to for a while.
Wow.
Because of what you do and how you do it.
Sure.
Right. I love in your bio it says curating.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? Finish it for me.
Creating beauty in spirit and truth.
Dude, it's so good. And so that's something we talked a little bit before.
Yeah.
The podcast about the type of people that we want to surround ourselves with, and just the people we surround ourselves with in general.
Sure.
And the mission of To the Throne is to use the gifts God's given us to take people to the throne, right?
Yeah.
And you embody that, and so through what you do and through the things that you say, and just how you design, it comes off.
Yeah.
Just very anointed, and so super thankful. Super grateful to have you on. So I guess I really want to know how you got into all this. I mean, like, people look at you, and you've amassed sort of a following, I guess you'd say, but like I said, I've seen you over the past few years, and doing exactly that, curating beauty and spirit and truth. So I mean, take me there. Like, I want to know how you got to where you are right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild. I, as a kid, always wanted to be an artist. So I grew up in the Philippines, Asian household. Everyone in my family was a doctor, teacher, like higher education.
Wow.
Right? And growing up, like, I just developed this desire for art and creativity. And I had like one cousin that was like a photographer. So he was the only one that was like against the grain, but he was kind of like, what's this guy doing? It's not a real job. So for me growing up, art was never an occupation. It was just like a hobby. So like I would I want to be an artist, but like my family, they're amazing. But at that time it was just like, that's not really like a job. And so I pursued being a physical therapist.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was like, I like sports, this has job security, benefits, and to make money to provide for my family. So pretty much going to college, that's what I started with. I was like, I'm going to be studying exercise science, going to be a physical therapist.
Wow.
And it's crazy because in the background, like I never stopped creating. Like I kept developing. Yeah. Like my creativity and my love for design and eventually graphic design. And two separate spheres of my journey, but the Lord ended up calling me to ministry and switched majors, pursued ministry, ended up starting a church while I was in college. Wow. Which is wild. But in the background, I was developing this gift and just this desire to create and to like partner my creativity with the Lord, which at that time I didn't see a lot of. Yeah. And it wasn't until after college, my last year of college, I ended up getting a job as a graphic designer for a like marketing team at my school. And I never studied design, self-taught, never took any classes. And that, like, it was like 8 months period actually grew me a lot of just the technicality of design. Yeah. Like, I just had this raw natural talent, but it helped kind of just give me the practical hands-on of like, okay, this is how you organize yourself, and this is how you work with people. So after that, it was that season I started posting my work online, and my first paid job was actually to design an album cover for my friend Jamar Pantana. Okay. So design his first album art, and I was like, my first paid gig, $50. Wow. Right, I got $50. It's like, there's money in this. Yeah. Not really, but that was my first thing, and eventually I started designing tattoos for people. Okay. And so that's what started like me making money as a designer. That's great. Designing tattoos.
Your style is very conducive to that.
It is, yeah. So that's why like you still see a lot of that influence. Was because a lot of the start of Saint Lennon was literally all tattoo designs. Like I was designing tattoos for people, and that's how I got paid. And eventually with Stillball, someone will see my work like, oh, like I want to hire him from album art for this and this and this. So it was a cool journey, and did that for a couple months, ended up getting married. And me and my wife, started this whole new season of life. We're married, and I was praying like, okay, God, like I need a job. What am I going to do? Ministry, there's not really money in ministry. Right. You're just laying your life down, and, planning a church, there's no money there. And so I started praying. I was like, God, what do I do? If you live in Lynchburg, the thing you do is you just get a job at Liberty University. Right. It's benefits, it's secured. And I just didn't feel peace about it. I was like, I just don't feel like that's what I'm called to do. Also, like, I don't know how that even work with ministry. And the Lord is very specific. At that time, I was doing design in the background, making a couple $100 a month, nothing crazy. And the Lord's like, Andrew, I want you to do design full time. I'm going to breathe on it. And I was like, God, are you sure? Like, you want me to be an artist? Like, that's not a thing.
That's usually how he tells us to do things. You're like, God, are you sure?
Yes. And I told my wife, and it was one of those things I was so like certain of. I was like, I really do believe God is on this. Yeah. And I told my wife, I'm like, hey, so I know this is really crazy, but I know we've been kind of looking for a job, but I feel like the Lord said that design is what I'm supposed to do full time. And he's going to breathe on it. And I didn't even have a lot of like clients at the time. It wasn't like I had like people lined up. Right. And so she was like, okay, I trust you. So we did that, and we lived month to month for a few months. And then just out of nowhere, like the breath of God landed on Saint Lennon, which is, amazing. The business. And from there, it just started growing. And the majority of it was just word of mouth, and like, I'll design for this artist, and that artist will share my work. And then all these other artists, and that's how I connect with a lot of like the indie artists in the music sphere. And it's just a really beautiful journey because it opened up like just so much connection to other creative people, and a lot of projects that I never thought I would be doing, and working for a lot of amazing people. And from that, a birth of like, man, like I have this beautiful like love for design, but now I want to like use this, to not just like post things that I make for other people, but it's like, let me create things with substance that actually have impact. And so a lot of the things I do now is just like, I'm just gonna create like what I feel like the Lord is telling me to create, or what the Lord has put in my heart. And from that, like, design camp birth, where I started teaching people from all around the world like how to implement design and how to implement like your faith in your design journey. Started releasing collections. And so it's been a crazy journey of like the Lord has breathed on it, and he still is. And it's very much that thing of like, this isn't mine. Like, I get to participate and I get to vision with the Lord, but he's like the life of it. Like, without the breath of God, it's just dead. That's great, man. So that's kind of the consistency of what my journey's been.
You said something that I think is really important that I want to highlight and I want to dig into. Sure. How do you, I guess, you talked about design camp, right? And you talked about, teaching people how to implement their faith with design. Yeah. And you talked about your own journey a little bit. But I want to know a little bit more on, okay, how do you take something that the Lord has given you? Because I think a lot of people that I've met living in Nashville, and even myself at some point, has been like, okay, God, you've given me dreams and you've given me things to say, or, you've told me things now how do I go and implement that with my gifts, right? How do I take people to the throne using the gifts I have, you know? Yeah. So for you, what does that look like? Because, you know, you do it so well, and you do it so effortlessly almost. Yeah. And it's almost like every single week I'm seeing your stuff being shared, like, by my friends and
That's
stuff.
Awesome.
And so it's like, oh yeah, you do this. And so, I want to hear your philosophy behind that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of layers, you know. For me, creativity has to be an overflow of, like, who you are. You know what I mean? Like, the things that we create are naturally going to be built up of, like, who we are and what we believe in our history and our journey. And so for me, like, creativity and spirituality, they're not in different compartments. Right. Like, they can't be. Wow. I think for a lot of people, you know, I actually just, like, an hour ago, I had someone reach out to me with, like, a powerful story of their friend who is, like, in seminary, but also really is passionate about graphic design, but just doesn't feel like they can mix, and so was about to give up graphic design. And he's like, I showed my friend your work, and it's, like, completely, like, made him a mess. He's like, this is possible. You can do both. And literally got that text, like, an hour ago of sharing, like, it's, like, inspired him and influenced him so much of, like, wait, my faith and my journey of trying to be a pastor and my love for design, like, I don't have to choose one over the other. And I think, I mean, a lot of that, I think, stems from just, like, the church in the West, you know, where we've made culture and art and all this. We've, like, okay, culture will handle creativity. Yeah. We'll just do what we need to do to just do spirituality. But, like, all of it is one, you know? I mean, like, so cliche, but the first thing we know about God is that he created. Like, the first thing he wanted to reveal about his nature is that he's a designer, that he's a creative. Right, one of the first people to get filled with the Spirit was Bezalel, was for the purpose of designing and creating the ark in the temple. And so it's like God's influence and desire for creativity is interwoven in his plan. And, like, one thing that you said that I love was, like, everything is design. Like, when you're planning your sermons, it's design. When you're a musician, like, you're designing something. When you're an artist, you're designing something. And so for me, when I approach my creativity, like, the Lord is so just in unity with my journey and my process. Like, when I'm creating, I'm not creating and putting design hat on. Like, I'm just in communion with the Lord. Wow. And I think that's a big thing that people miss is, like, right? And that's the same thing for just Sunday church going, where it's like, okay, when I'm on Sunday, I'll worship, I'll be close to God, and then I go throughout my week, and then I wait till next Sunday to have my experience and feel close to God. But it's like God's design in the garden was full communion. Yeah. And, like, the beautiful thing about Jesus is that the garden is restored. Yeah. And so through the Holy Spirit, we can now access God fully while we're designing. So for me, I just choose to live, like, with no separation. That's so good. And so when I create, it's like there's moments where the Lord will plant seeds, or, like, here, Andrew, here's a phrase that I want you to use, and I'll just build off of it. Or I might just want to create something, and then he brings the water and he makes it grow into something way more than I thought was possible. Wow. So
that's amazing, dude. Yeah. That's really good. It's like, even teaches me something, you know. I think I've done design without the Lord, sure. And it's like, it's stale, you know. Sure. Yeah. It's stale. It's it doesn't have the oil on it, you know. Yeah. It doesn't have the life on it, and so you know, I think having that, like, that partnership, like you said, that there's no separation between design and spirituality, and because they have to happen together. So, you know, I look at a lot of people that maybe do what you do, right? And maybe not necessarily in the Christian space. Sure. Maybe they're secular, but you know, having this cycle of creating, you know, and sharing with the world, right? And sharing with 25,000 people, right, sure. on a weekly basis can be toxic, I think, if you let it. Even for sharing with a small amount, like myself, it's like, it can be toxic when you strive to create for that attention. I think I watched a TED Talk recently with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and he talked about how creativity nowadays has become sort of a means to an end to get attention. Wow. And that the title of his talk was actually craving attention will actually make you less creative. Wow. And so I think it's really important, especially for people like ourselves, creatives, people that are creating, especially partnering with God.
Sure.
To see the other side of how you do things and how you, I guess, maybe separate in your mind or how you do things to make sure that you're not creating for this cycle of, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
For your community, but necessarily like you're going to the Lord first and saying, I'm partnering with you to know what you want to say to your people, you know? So I guess what would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean,
because I know it's a huge thing for creatives, loaded, you know? Yeah. People are like, you know, I was having a conversation with someone close to me recently, and they were like, I just want praise when I create stuff. I just I feed off of it. So someone in your shoes, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, that's real, and that's something I've had to wrestle with, and I have seasons where I find the Holy Spirit like, Andrew, like, say the chorus. Like, don't worry, like, don't focus on that. But it's a very real thing, I think, as artists that we struggle with. I don't know, I think a lot of it, I know I was talking to Dan about, a lot of time we find our identity in, like, our gifting and what we do. And I think for a lot of, I don't know if this is prophetic, but I feel like for a lot of artists, you know, people who are creative have just experienced a lot of rejection. Like, specifically in the church, maybe, you know what I mean? Like, art, like I just mentioned, it's like, we don't really need that right now. Like, we need to focus on other things. And so people have not found, like, their place in creativity within, like, faith spheres. And so even my journey growing up as an artist is like, it was not taken seriously. So I think there's that layer of, like, there's been a lot of rejection that, like, artists experience. And so when we create, when there's attention, when there's acceptance, it so easily becomes influence of, like, okay, when I create, that feels good, so that I'm gonna, like, attach my identity to what I do, because that's where I find acceptance. Yeah. And that's obviously not a for sure thing, but I think that aspect of, you know, where do we create from, like, our motivations is so important. And you know, I designed something a while ago, right? Your motives determine your fruit, right? That was one of the designs that I put up. And it's like, your motivation for something is going to determine the fruit that comes out of it. So if your motivation in creating something is like, man, I want to do this for gain, then, like, it's just going to end at gain. It's not going to continue an impact. It's true. But if your motivation is like, man, I love to create, and I believe in what I'm doing has impact, whether it's for one person or 10 people or 1,000, then it's like, when you put it out, like, you've achieved your goal, you know? And so for me, just the social media age makes it a lot harder, you know, with like counts and comments and shares. It makes it a lot harder. And so I'm not perfect in this, but I think for me, no matter what the numbers are, like, I have to stay at that same place of, like, you know, I'm creating from this place of, like, I get to, and I know that what I'm doing is to add value. Yeah. And I think a lot of times is when we create from that place of, I'm trying to find identity, we're just trying to add space. Like, we're just trying to put things out that's just taking space, but we don't need to just add more clutter into the world. Like, we need to add things that have value. And so for me, it's like, okay, this thing I'm creating, and I have to, like, you know, I posted this thing at a time of the Lord at the beginning of this year. You know, every year I take a fast or something where I just, like, ask God for vision, for ministry, for family, for business, for design, art, and all that stuff. And I was, like, praying, like, God, like, all right, give me, like, prophetic vision for Saint Lennon, for art. Like, what are you going to do? Like, where is this going to go? And for that first week, I was getting nothing. I was getting vision for ministry, for family. I was getting nothing for, you know, design. And I was praying, and it was like 2 weeks later, I was praying, like, the Lord finally spoke something about specifically Saint Lennon design. And he spoke the phrase that said, Andrew, make art, not content. Like, straightforward. And it was like a bus hit me. I was like, oh gosh, it hit me. And I posted about it, and, like, that's something that I feel like is my true north as an artist. Yeah. Whereas, like, yeah, there's moments where you have to post things, you know, to market, and it's not necessarily it's content, but it's like the motivation behind what you put. Like, is this genuinely art? Wow. Or is this, like, the motivation of what content usually is. It's just like, let's put a TikTok.
Yeah.
Because
it's filler.
Yeah, it's like, that's the whole thing. And there's nothing wrong about that. Like, yeah, let's have fun, like joy, and it's beautiful. And but I think it goes back to that thing of like, am I doing this to add value or to just add clutter, to just fill space? So
that's so good.
Yeah,
that's good.
Yeah.
How do you, I guess practically, like, what do you because I guess, how long has Saint Lennon been, going on in its capacity that it is right now,
Yeah.
How long has it been?
So it's been, let's see, 2.5 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you started, what was that like?
Yeah.
As far as vision wise and holding on to that, because it's, you didn't have all the things that have, sort of come along, you being faithful with your gifts, as you have now, right? You didn't have that then.
Yeah.
So I guess someone who is like starting something and being like, okay, well, how do I do all these things? How do I partner with God in doing these things? How do I carry the mantle of saying, I want to like take people into the presence of God through, and I want to bring revelation to His people. How do you walk that out over the last 2.5 years and being like, well, is it working? Is it not working? Those seasons of, well, what do I do now? Is this, have you had those? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. I mean, it's very real. I mean, I think, like, outside looking at Saint Lennon, it's like, okay, this is like cool design page brand, but it's like, it's a lot of layers. You know what I mean? It's like, it's business. Gotta work with taxes.
Yeah,
you gotta,
of course.
Pay bills.
All the annoying stuff.
All the annoying stuff. You gotta, client relationships. There's so many layers. And for me, it was really interesting. Like I said, since I'm self-taught going into it, I had not a lot of a gauge of what it looks like. Most people, they'll work at a firm for a while, then they go freelance, or they go to college for a while, and then they have the tools, and then they go freelance. But for me, it was like blank slate and nothing. Yeah. And so
you gotta figure out what this is. Yeah.
You're like, 2 months in, you're like, oh, I need to like do that thing for this. And so there's an aspect of like that I loved. I never went into starting Saint Lennon of like, I want to get big, I want to blow up, I want to start selling my own merch. Like, that wasn't the goal. It was genuinely like, I need to provide for my family. But also like, this is what I love. Yeah. And those are the two things that were like my driving forces. Like, I want to take care of my family and I want to do what I love and have purposeful work. It's like a big thing. As believers, it's like we want, and I think for everyone, it's like we want work that feels purposeful. Like, that's the design we see in Eden. And so for me, there's definitely been moments where, I've had to really wrestle with vision and like, okay, am I just falling into the routine of like, okay, I am like out from the outside, like there's really cool, powerful posts, but then like that's not all I'm working on. There's all these projects that are hard or that I don't want to do, but I have to do to provide money. And so I think for me, learning to balance, and I say this, I get asked a lot, it's like, how do you not burn out with everything that you're doing? Or how do you not burn out with what you're posting and having to be consistent with what you do? And I think, for me, I've had to learn, it's like, okay, there's at least with freelance, I've learned there's that pocket of things that just you need to do. Like, okay, you got to work on that retainer and you just got to pump out social media graphics every week. It's not the most exciting thing, but you just got to do it. But I think for a lot of people who go into freelance design, like if that's only it becomes very draining very quick. Yeah. And I've had to like find that balance of, okay, I need to do what I need to do to just provide and keep the wheel turning, but then I need to keep the main thing. Yeah. And I need to just create things just to create things, even if I never post it. Yeah. And I've had to practice that for myself. It's like, okay, there's moments where I feel unmotivated or I feel like I'm not designing anything that has value, but I just need to create. So I'll just like start sketching something or visioning something without the goal of I need to post this or I need to share this, but it's like I just need to do what I'm made to do.
Yeah, just do it from your heart. You know? Just be creative. Not for the like I said earlier, the craving of attention. Yeah. But just be creative. What's been the hardest part?
In what sense?
Just what's the hardest part of carrying the burden of partnering with the Lord, right? And designing something that can bring revelation to someone. Like, what's it like carrying that burden? Because I know I found, like, you know, I don't have much influence, but the influence I do have, I try to steward, right? And I know anyone who looks up to me, or anyone that I've seen look up to anyone, you know, you're looking sometimes for this person to be like, you know, I'm sure there's people out there to be like, well, you know, going through your feed and getting words from them, you know, and the Holy Spirit speaking to them and saying, okay, like through this design, I'm getting this word for my life, right? And it's giving me this joy or this encouragement. What's that like? Do you consider, like, any of that heaviness of the weight of, like, revelation for people, bringing God's revelation to people? Like, do you consider, like, does that ever weigh on your mind?
No, not
really?
Until now. No, just kidding. Just now, I'm like,
moment.
Oh my gosh, it's all rushing in. Not really. I mean, like, I just don't put myself in that. Like, I don't put that expectation on myself. And, you know, obviously, like, I want to steward well. Like, I don't want to lead anyone astray or, like, do anything that's, like, not theologically accurate or is harmful. But for me, it's like I said, like, everything that I put out has to be an overflow. And so it's like, if my Instagram is, like, looking super spiritual and, like, having really good words, but then, like, that's something I learned, like, 2 years ago, and I'm just, like, going through my journals from 3 years ago, like, trying to get words from. It's like, I'm missing the point. And so I think for me, I think definitely the pressure. So definitely the pressure comes in of, like, you know, I need to be stewing my internal world before I'm stewing the external. And so if I get so lost in, okay, I need to post this, or I need to get a graphic after this photo so that my feed looks good, which is real. But, like, internally, I'm not actually stewing, like, my own relationship with the Lord and my own personal revelation. You know, the whole thing of, you know, we're not supposed to live off yesterday's bread, where there's fresh bread daily, right? Jesus is daily bread. And what happens so easily is we just keep eating, like, stale bread, yesterday's revelation, because it works.
No nutrients.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But it's like, no, we need to keep nourishing ourselves and getting fresh revelation, getting fresh bread, drinking new wine. And so for me, I think that's the pressure of, I don't want to get so ahead of what I'm putting out that it's like, okay, what I'm putting out is just leading the way, versus, like, okay, my priority is, like, that personal revelation, that personal intimacy with God. That is what's ultimately pouring into everything else.
That's good. You could tell, like, that from what I've seen, and you know, I've followed you for a while, and I can see that, you know. Wow. I can see, like, the Spirit, and I know, like, I have personal friends in Nashville and all over the country who repost your stuff all the time. And even, like, I'm sure you get tagged a ton, right?
Sure.
But, you know, they say, you know, this really helped me, and I've talked to them personally about it. And so, cool. I just want to let you know that you have, you know, sometimes we can forget the impact that we have, and the influence that we have, and the fact that people can really, the Holy Spirit can use us. And
that's awesome.
I just want to remind you of that.
Wow.
I guess to close it out, I want to ask you a question that we try to ask people all the time.
Okay.
And it's funny because I asked the question, but it's hard for me to answer because it's a heavy question, right?
Okay.
But I want to know, what are 3 things you want to be known for?
Whoa, that's a heavy question.
It is a heavy question.
Okay. So the first one is how I love the Lord. You know, one of the things that, I know it sounds super basic, like, I want to be known for how I love God, and that can look very layered for a lot of people, but for me, like, and even in our church culture that we're building, I believe in Matthew 22, right? The first and greatest is to love the Lord, right? With all your heart, with all your soul, all your mind. That's your entire being. It's not just like when you worship. That's not just like when you serve people. It's like your entire life is the living sacrifice. And so for me, there's that thing of, like, man, I want to be known for when people brush against me, or when people leave, you know, conversations with me. It's like, man, this person, like, loves Jesus. Like, like, you don't have to, like, it's not about, like, externally what I post and, like, man, yeah, this guy's obviously a Christian and reads his Bible, but it's like, man, like, there's a genuine revelation of love for God. So that's the first thing. The second thing I would say is family. You know, I think at the end of the day, if I'm successful in Saint Lennon, but I fail in family, I fail in Saint Lennon.
Wow.
And so for me, it's like, I have such a strong value for family. Obviously, I have a 1.5-year-old. I hope to have more kids down the line. But that's something that I really value, is like, man, I want to, like, this is my first church. Like, my family is my church before the people that I pastor. So family, the way that I love my family. And I think the last thing is like I would love for Saint Lennon and, you know, the art that is released and the creativity and the things that come out of Saint Lennon to almost like awaken believers to like their creativity.
Wow.
And you know, a big thing in my heart is like, I want to create this bridge between, like, I believe creativity is the bridge between God and culture.
Wow.
You know, it's art. Simply, it's art. And so, you know, as a believer, it's like, man, partnering with the Holy Spirit and creating this reality that you live in, where your art, the substance that you release out of your life, is a bridge, right, between people that don't know God or don't know God super well to knowing like the fullness of who He is. And so, whether that's through the merch, the collections, the other crazy ideas I have in the future, that it's like, man, like, I want to be known for bringing people into this place of understanding the value of their creativity and the importance of partnering with the Lord in that. So,
dude, those are good.
Thanks,
three good things. You know, as we wrap this up, I just want to thank you again for being on the pod.
Dude,
say the podcast.
It's an honor.
say pod. It's weird. I don't know if people say it, but anyways, dude, yeah, thank you again.
Thank you,
you know, just want to thank you again for the influence you carry. You know, you take people to the throne through what you do, and so I'm grateful for it. I know a lot of people are grateful for it. You've got a collection coming out soon.
I do. Yes.
Say a little something about that so people know.
Yes.
Where they can get it, where they can get the goods.
Yeah, so releasing Saint Lennon Home Collection the 29th of this month, so in a few weeks. And, you know, my heart was, and this is long story short, but with these products, I really believe in the value of home and the value of adding beauty to your home. And for me, you know, when I create, I don't want to just like create something that's oversaturated. Like, I want to like find the untapped wells of creativity and like build a well, or the untapped places and build a well there. So for me, I was like, there's not a lot of good like home decor. Yeah. Not a lot of good like Christian home stuff. And if it is, it's like very cheesy Christian homeware, like, you know, bless this house. Yeah. Amen. Or it's like
live, laugh, love.
Live, laugh, love on a plaque. Or it's very feminine.
Yes.
And so I was like, man, I want to like create things that people can add beauty and substance to their home that would remind them of truth and that they just love and are good quality. So each product, like, I approach it as like, I want each thing to feel like an art piece. Wow. Not just like, let me slap a design on a blank thing, but it's like, I want textures and the dimensions and the shape and the designs all to play a part of like creating something that would add value to someone's life. So that's the goal, coming out 29th of this month, and it'll be on my website, saintlennon.com, and super pumped for it and continue growing what God's doing here. So.
That's good, man. Well, you're doing a good job.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you again. This has been great. So
yeah,
we're going to close it out, but thank you.
Awesome.
Again,
thank you, guys.
Appreciate it, man.
We want to thank Saint Lennon for joining us on the To The Throne podcast. If you were inspired, let us know. DM us. Let us know how this impacted you, how it inspired you. Definitely inspired me. And also follow him at Saint Lennon on Instagram. And you can check out his website, saintlennon.com. He does have a release, like he said, on the 29th of this month. Support him. Let him know how you feel about his creativity and how it's inspired you. I want to thank you all for going to the throne with us. Take care.